and welcome back. We are here for episode 5 of Impact Insights, the video series. Today we're going to be talking about introverts in the workplace. So that's a topic that hits really close to home for me personally, since I am actually an introvert, and also for our two guests today, Lisa McAteer and Bridget O'Connor. Welcome, and thanks for being here with me to chat about introversion and how you can be nice to the introverts on your team and in your company in general. Let's talk about introversion in the workplace. Before we actually start the discussion, we should probably try to explain what introversion is. I say try because, of course, no two introverts are exactly the same. There's no real cookie cutter definition for us to share with you. A good way to think about it is, when you've spent a little too much time scrolling through Instagram or Reddit or TikTok or whatever your thing is, and then, oh no, now your phone battery is left sitting at like 3%. So what do? You go and plug it in, you leave it for a bit, and then once it's recharged, you can get back to doing whatever you were doing. That's the simplest way that I can think to explain introversion. After an extended period of time spent around people or out in the world socializing, introverts tend to feel pretty drained. So then they personally need to spend some time alone to recharge their battery, so to speak. That really resonated with me when I heard that sort of comparison. But Lisa, Bridget, if you have a better way to describe what it's like to be an introvert, please feel free to jump in now.
Yeah, I think, Katie, you hit the nail on the head with that recharging part of being an introvert. For me, it's, being an introvert is something, it's just a part of my personality, but it's not my entire.
Did you see her? I'm so sorry. I did not make up the cat. She's a real thing. I'm so sorry, Bridget. Please carry on.
Yeah. I think you're right. I mean, yeah, you hit the nail on the head saying that when you're an introvert, you just need time on your own to just recharge and just kind of get back to that center space where you're kind of comfortable. And not that you're putting on a show with other people, but when you're around other people, it's you're not in your comfortable space, which is most of the time when you're kind of on your own, or at least around people that you're comfortable with. So yeah, I think you're right. That battery analogy really does work for me as well.
We've been talking as a company at Impact a lot about introverts in the workplace. There's been blogs about it, polls about it, all sorts of stuff happening. And as part of that preparation for this episode, we did poll our introverted LinkedIn followers to find out what they most wish that their extroverted boss or colleagues understood about working with them. So the results of that poll showed that the majority of our respondents want to make it very clear that being quiet, as introverts sometimes are, doesn't mean that they're disengaged in the job. It doesn't mean that they're bored, and it certainly doesn't mean that they're boring. It just means that they're quieter, maybe, than their extroverted counterparts. So I guess what I'm wondering is, what are some challenges that you, Bridget and Lisa, have personally experienced as an introvert in the workplace?
Lisa, do you want to go ahead this time first?
Sure. I think a few things come to mind. It's really hard when you're either on a pure sales floor, or just a recruitment agency, or just an open concept office, to get things done. And I actually didn't realize that was a thing. I just thought I was easily distracted, and I didn't put it together that that's what was essentially blocking me from being more successful. And then I was reading Quiet, The Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking by Susan Cain. Have either of you listened or read it?
No, but I've loved to.
It's fantastic. And she was talking mainly about open plan floors or sales floor. And she said, for an introvert in particular, yes, you can be a fantastic salesperson because we're really able to dig deep in the conversations that we have and keep it, much further than that, Cliff Clavin superficial level. But we need to get off the sales floor now. And so at that particular moment in my career, I was working for a different company, and we had a number of perfectly vacant offices. And so I sort of turned to my boss at the time and I said, can I just try it out? I've been listening to this book. Can I just go sit in that office? And she's like, go, do what you need to do. And it was like night and day. And I'm like, holy heck, I wish I'd known this 10 or 15 years ago. So when things shifted for us with the pandemic and there was the opportunity to go remote, I know a lot of people were saying, oh my goodness, I miss everybody so terribly. And I couldn't get out the door fast enough. This was all my hopes and dreams answered, getting to keep a job with the company that I love, but getting to have my alone time a lot of the time.
In fact, you got out the door so fast and then just completely like fled the city all the way to a small town, didn't you?
Yes. I would have left the country if I could have. No, I'm kidding.
Amazing. Bridget, what about you? Did you want to chime in on that one?
Yeah, so I guess some challenges that I've found in the workplace is taking the opportunity to actually speak up in crowd can sometimes be something that's quite difficult, because I would have never really want to interrupt somebody when they're chatting, especially in like a group meeting or like a team discussion. There'll be so many good ideas floating around and people are interjecting at every kind of twist and turn, and then I'm kind of constantly there wondering, okay, now, okay, no, and then you're kind of almost waiting more for the gaps and you're thinking more about, okay, I'll say my piece now, but then somebody else will come in. So for me, a challenge is like trying to find the right time to basically voice my opinion in a crowd and in those team settings. Also, another thing that I've found is in any team meetings or company-wide meetings, if I was ever called out on the spot, sometimes it'd be a little bit hard for me to just think of a good answer there and then. It would take me a little bit of time I'd have to think about it a little bit and then come back with a stronger answer. But yeah, thinking on the spot and being able to kind of voice what I need to say in a crowd, definitely some of the challenges I've faced as a introvert leaning personality.
I think that's all of those are such important things to bring up. And I do really think that back to what Lisa said about COVID sort of creating opportunities for remote work and just a very different workplace setting than we had seen before, really gave introverts kind of a time to shine. And I really think that that's done wonders for opening people's eyes to like, hey, these are actually incredible employees. Maybe we just weren't providing them with the tools or the environment that they needed to really work to their their full potential. Introverts also, as we were just saying, have a ton of workplace strengths, luckily, or we might not be here. I might be biased, but I personally think that introverts are wonderful employees and coworkers, and contrary to popular belief, we actually make really great leaders and managers as well in the proper setting. So what are some reasons that an employer should be excited about having an introvert on their team?
I think you're definitely, when you bring an introvert to your team, you're definitely bringing someone who's going to listen quite a bit, especially in the industry that we're in recruitment. That's actually a really important skill to have. So with an introvert, you're kind of guaranteed that you're going to have somebody who's going to listen to what you're talking about, and like Lisa was saying a while ago, have much better in-depth conversations. That's not to say that extroverts don't have in-depth conversations, but with an introvert, there's kind of like that 20% rule just naturally. 80% of the time, your candidate or whoever you're speaking with is probably doing most of the talking, whereas that introvert is kind of doing that 20%. So I think that's a really important skill and really important thing that people get excited about, those listening skills.
Definitely, I agree with that for sure. Lisa, do you have anything to add on that one?
Yeah, I think just to build on that a little bit, maybe not the cherry on top, but maybe like a side dish to what you just put together to accompany it. The other thing is, we can oftentimes come across as aloof, but what it is actually is when we go into a room, we don't try and get ourselves heard straight out of the gate. Rather, especially if there's new people, in the area. We would rather really just sit back and watch and see that person in action before we decide how we are going to engage. And I think, when it comes to big meetings or events, no, we're not running in, shouting and trying to shake every hand in the room. Actually, that's our worst nightmare. But we will quietly sit there and watch and think strategically about who we're going to approach, what we're going to say, and what kind of outcome we're hoping to achieve by that.
Definitely. And I think that also ties in with what you were both saying earlier about having those like thoughtful, in-depth conversations rather than like a, hey, how are you? Hey, how are you? To everybody in the room. Introverts are much more likely to actually focus on one or two people and really build that relationship or start to build that relationship, build a rapport with that person, which I do see as a huge strength because they're probably going to remember you a lot more than one of the many people that just waved and shook their hand. Now that we've got a pretty good idea of some of the major strengths and challenges of introverted professionals, let's get to the good stuff, solutions. What is your best advice for a manager who's hoping to help ensure that their introverted employee feels supported and is able to be really productive and successful in their role?
Well, I think what it all comes down to is that an introvert wants a safe space. They want space and they want to be able to do their thing. So I'll start off a bit on the don't side. Maybe years gone by I've been traumatized, and then Bridget can jump in with some of the do's. But I would say, don't criticize in public. I'm not saying that we can't take criticism and we won't appreciate it, but do that privately, or you will watch an introvert crash faster than anything you've ever seen before. Don't bombard them with small talk. As soon as somebody says, how was your weekend? I say, fine, how was yours? Tell me all about yours, and deflect it immediately. Yeah. Not to say that I don't want to talk. I'll tell you my deepest, darkest secrets over tea, but I do not want to tell you about my lack of weekend. Don't be disingenuous with your listening. I can spot a mile away when someone is just going through the motions with me. And if I sense that they're not being genuine with wanting to hear the answer to what I'm saying, I will stop talking in fairly short order. And lastly, I would say don't make social events mandatory. Sometimes I will come, sometimes I will not. But if that can be more of a optional thing, that's right up my alley. I remember at one company I worked at, when you closed your first deal, they would make you get up and do a dance in front of the entire company. And this is an introvert's absolute worst nightmare, being new, being showcased. It was all kinds of awkward. So I may have done Gangnam Style, but that for me was a feeling of dread for weeks. I almost not wanting to close the deal because I knew that was going to come out on the other side. Bridget, bring in the sunshine.
Bring it in, baby.
I'll just top it off with another don't as well. I think don't label the shy one, the quiet one, the introvert actually, because it's something that I would then cling to if someone were saying, "Oh, you're the quiet one." Like, "Oh, well, I'm the quiet one now." It's really easy for an introvert or someone who kind of leans in that personality to if you label me that, then okay, that's comfortable for me, perfectly fine with me. I guess I'll be that quiet one for you. If you're a manager and you're bringing an introvert into your team, like all of us, we're human. We want to be seen. We want to be heard. So even just asking the question, "Hey, what do you like to work with? How do you like to communicate? What's a good work day look like for you?" And just kind of having an understanding of like that person and what it is that they respond well to in terms of communication. To feel supported in a team, I think it's a great idea to actually, and we did it one time actually at Impact, where we all did a personality assessment within our team. So that was a great way to learn about other people's personality traits, be it the extroverts, the introverts, and then from there really kind of work to each other's strengths. That is also a really good way to get seen, to get heard, to understand that, and then everybody's kind of was on the same page that, okay, we're all different, but we're kind of all the same as well in kind of our own ways. And then to feel, to be successful, it's really just understanding, well, what does success mean to you, the introvert? Okay, maybe it's not leading company meetings, but maybe it is working on some projects behind the scene. So just defining what success for that introvert means will have them be seen, have them be heard, and have them feel supported.
That's perfect. I think what you were saying as well about really getting to understand who that person is, that's important too, because a lot of introverts actually sort of present as extroverts. They have that, like, I thought Lisa was an extrovert when I first met her, Bridget, even you a little bit, and then I know people say that about me as well. It's because we can be social, we can be outgoing, but that doesn't mean that inside we're not fully introverted, and we really do need that time to ourselves, and that we work better alone, or at least with a little bit of space, a little bit of quiet. So the more open the communication is between a manager and their employee, the more they'll get to see, like, oh, hey, maybe this person is actually not the best for an open plan office, or maybe, I shouldn't just call on them in the middle of a brainstorming session, but maybe they'd be great to have a one-on-one with after, and then they would have a bunch of ideas. So for sure, and that's true of any employee-employer relationship, whether it be an extrovert or an introvert. The more you know about them, I think the better that. Let's end this by dispelling some myths about introverts, because there are many. There are a lot of stereotypes attached to the concept of introversion. The main one being that we're extremely shy, we're standoffish, we're antisocial, in some cases even rude or snobby, I've heard, just because we're not maybe as chatty as the next person. So the thing is, a lot of introverts don't really mind being social, and even actually do enjoy it in certain circumstances. So what kind of socializing do you enjoy, if any? And are there any stereotypes that you'd like to really set the record straight on before we wrap up?
So socializing, yeah, I love to socialize. I love a good party. I think what's really important for me in those situations is that I feel comfortable with the people that I'm around, that I can really, I guess, be myself without worrying if I'm saying something or if I'm not saying something. So yeah, social situations are definitely okay. They're definitely fine. And then just to kind of dispel any myths about introverts, I think when someone is quiet, we have a tendency to kind of fill in the blank, for them. And really, we don't actually have to do that. Just because they're quiet, that's it. It's just they're quiet. There's a full stop. You don't have to say, oh, they're rude, or they're shy, or like, oh, they don't want to talk to me. It's not got nothing to do with you. It's really just, that person being themselves. So no need to fill in the gap if you are experiencing some quietness from somebody else.
That's great. I really like that. Lisa, what do you think? Set some myths straight for us.
Sure. Myths that we're fragile wallflowers that need to curl up under a rock and not be seen from or heard from anytime soon, like a comet coming through the sky. No, I don't want to shake 100 different hands. Well, there is a pandemic, but I don't want to go to a massive networking event and meet a bunch of people. Would I faint at the idea of public speaking in front of 500 or 1,000 people? Absolutely not. I love that sort of thing. So I think, don't make the assumption that just because someone is an introvert that in True Blood style, that they'll absolutely crinkle and evaporate in the light. That is not true. In terms of socializing, I think planned is important in that I know where I'm going, I know what's expected of me, and if I feel like that will scare the living daylights out of me, that I've got the opportunity to opt out. One of my favorite things that I ever did with my old team before the pandemic was we We did a morning volunteering with the soup kitchen, and we had a blast. And it was just so fun giving back to the community, but being among people I liked, respected, and trusted, and just spending our time that way. That was great for me.
Totally. I agree with everything you guys said. For me personally, I feel like I love to socialize as long as I'm not going to be guilted when I'm ready to go. When I'm ready to go, I need to go. It might be after an hour, it might be after 3 hours. I might stay with you all night. But once I get to that point where I'm like, battery's done, it doesn't help to have people try and make you stay. And I think that people are doing it to be sweet. They want you to feel welcome. They want you to know that they want you to stick around. But that's when I start getting that like, no, it's time. I've got to go now. Where's the back exit? I need to leave. So I think it's important stuff that you really wouldn't know if you weren't introverted, if you hadn't had introverted friends or family who you'd spent a lot of time with. So I think that's it. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I was really excited for this episode, and I say that every time, but I really was excited for this episode. If you haven't watched any of our other Impact Insights video series episodes, they are available on our IGTV and our YouTube channel. You may notice Lisa is in one or two others as well. So if you're a big Lisa fan like I am, you can hop over there and check those out. We will be back next month with episode 6, and I hope to see you then. Thanks again, Lisa and Bridget, for joining me.
Thanks, Katie.
Bye.
Bye-bye.